We have taken a job order. We have come up with a candidate. Now what we have to do is present that candidate to the employer and make a placement. When do you present a candidate? When you have one who is qualified and interested. Qualified and interested. The mistake that most recruiters make about candidates is they present candidates who are qualified, who are willing to interview. That's the wrong time to present it. It's got to be qualified and motivated to change positions. Now, before you present the candidate to the employer, write out your presentation. It doesn't have to be scripted. Matter of fact, I don't want you to read a presentation to the employer. But write out that presentation so that you can pace yourself towards the close. And the close on this presentation is going to be setting an interview. Now, tell me if this sounds familiar. Don't write this down. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Hi, John. It's Tony Byrne. I have your manager of tax accounting. Johnny is currently at Transamerica as a senior tax accountant doing this, this, and this. Prior to that, he was at Prudential Bache as a junior tax accountant doing this, this, and this. He's got a BS in Business Administration from NYU. He's currently earning 40. I think we can get him for 43. I can have him out at your office tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. Is that a good time? Or would 3 o'clock be better for you? Huh? Does that sound familiar? Sure it does. Sure it does. That's how many of us were trained to make presentations. That's how I trained recruiters for 10 years to make presentations. That is boring. That is boring. Let's think about this for a second. John has an opening for a manager of tax accounting, right? He has, well, the word is out. He's run an ad. He's gotten 100 resumes from that ad of tax accountants. Same title, duties, and money, and he's read them all. They're different colors, different typefaces, but they're all the same. He's gotten 50 resumes from his own employees, all trying to get the internal referral bonus, and he's read them all. He's got 20 resumes from other recruiters, tax accountants, and he's read them all. He's read 170 resumes of tax accountants. Every time he hears the term tax accountant, his eyes glaze over. And now we call him up and say, hey, John, I have your tax accountant. All we do is launch him into a state of boredom and catatonia. He's not going to be paying attention to us. Come on, that's not the way to make presentations. Here's how you make a presentation. Hi, John. Tony Byrne. I would like to introduce you to someone who is currently a senior tax accountant for one of your competitors. In other words, intro, identify the candidate by title and employer. You can characterize the employer. You don't have to name the employer. And then immediately get into the benefit. What could this candidate do for John? John, this is a guy who could add $1 million to your bottom line by bringing you up on the new IBM system. He could automate the entire tax accounting function, bring you up, save you $1 million. Into the benefit within 10 seconds. Now, achievement accomplishment. He consolidated 6 tax accounting locations into 2 and cut his operating budget by 50% at his last employer. Achievement accomplishment. Reason for changing. His current employer wants to move the tax accounting function to Idaho. His family's here. He doesn't want to go. Intro, identify candidate, benefit, achievement accomplishment, reason for changing. That is 60% of the presentation, right there. 60% of the presentation. And we haven't gotten near his resume yet. Most recruiters call up companies and read resumes to them. We didn't do that. Now, after benefit, achievement, accomplishment, reason for changing, we're going to summarize his background. He's got 11 years of tax accounting experience at 2 companies specializing in entertainment insurance. We take his entire career and summarize it in 1 sentence. He's got a BS in Business Administration from NYU. He's currently earning 40. and I'm going to make a mistake here. I think we can get him for 45. I am sure we can get him for 46. I'm making a mistake on purpose. It'll come back to haunt us later. It's 46 we want. We want to be closing this company at 46. I think we can get him for 45. I am sure we can get him for 46. Now create some excitement. I am introducing him to you and 4 of your competitors only. They are seeing him over the next 2 days. I can have him in your office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. It's a good time for him. Is it a good time for you? I have had employers say to me, look, please tell him just to ask for one time. Please tell him to stop saying, oh, would 3 o'clock be better for you? We have heard it 9 million times. Please tell him to just ask for one time. Start asking for one time. Create some excitement, create some urgency, make the employer feel like you're doing him a favor to get that candidate in there at all. Now, this presentation should take a minute or less from hello to close. And I want to give you a hint. The clearer the benefit, the shorter the presentation can be. If you're going to introduce someone to an employer who can bring him $1 million, all you have to do is ask that employer, would you like to meet someone who can bring you $1 million? And the employer will say yes. You don't have to get into a lot of description about his background. The less clear the benefit is, the more you're going to have to support it with other information, with achievement, accomplishment, with a little bit of background. But if you've done this presentation correctly, intro, identify candidate, benefit, achievement, accomplishment, reason for changing, summarize background, education, money, create excitement, close. If you've done it properly, you've piqued the employer's interest, and then you've told him nothing about the candidate, just summarize his background, and he's going to say to you, tell me more about him. Because you haven't really told him. He's interested now in hearing, but you haven't told him anything about him. Tell me more about him. Well, John, what do you want to know? Well, where does he work now? See, now you're having a conversation with John. He's asking you questions. John, he works at Transamerica as a senior tax accountant doing this, this, and this. I can have him there at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's the only time he has open. Is it a good time for you? Answer the question, close. And if John has enough poise to ignore the second close and comes back at you, well, with where did he work prior to that? Well, John, prior to that, he worked at Prudential Beige as a junior tax accountant doing this, this, and this. Do you have your calendar in front of you? Just keep closing. Keep closing. Now let's quickly dispense with the question that has tripped up recruiters for time immemorial. What might the employer say at some point along here?
Send me a resume.
Send me a resume. What else do you want to know? See, why does he say send me a resume? No. He says it out of habit. Out of habit. He doesn't think that he needs a resume. He says it because he's always been saying it. He says it because his boss says it. He says it because the guy sitting next to him says it. Not because he needs it. What does he need in order to decide whether or not to see this candidate? Information. That's exactly right. Information is what he needs. So when he says, send me a resume, do him a favor. Ignore it and offer him what he needs. Send me a resume. What else do you want to know? Well, where did he go to school? Went to NYU, graduated in 1978. Do you have your book in front of you? Can you see him tomorrow at 9 o'clock? Answer the question and close. Now, I want to say something truly radical. I'm not opposed to you sending resumes. I would prefer that you didn't. I prefer that you didn't. And I train recruiters not to do it. But I'm not opposed to you sending resumes. I can think of some circumstances where some recruiters would have to do it. If they're going to be logged in as the agency of record, if they're dealing 3 levels down from the level where a decision's taken place, I can think of lots of circumstances where you need to send resumes. Go ahead, send them a resume. Have the candidate bring it over. You drive it over, walk it over, FedEx it, Quip it. I can think of 20 ways for you to get that resume to the employer. But don't get off of this conversation without setting up the interview. I don't care about the resume, but don't get off of this conversation. You see, you'll never be in a better position than you are right this second to set up the interview. And if that employer says to you, I can't set up that interview until I have a resume, Say, gee, you know, I can't give you the resume until I have the interview set up. So I'll tell you what, why don't we split the difference? Just give me a time and I'll have the candidate bring it with him. Just don't get off of this conversation until you have got the interview set up. Now, when you are finding people to fill a position, don't save up 5 of them and present all 5 to the company at the same time. Don't do that. Present the candidates as you find them, one at a time. So if you find one this morning, present them. Find one this afternoon, present them. You see, when recruiters were doing read the resume presentations, yeah, maybe an employer could live through 3 or 4 resumes being read to him. But I don't know any employer who could live through 2 of these presentations. It's called a benefit presentation, a power presentation. You are involving them. You're bringing them up. You're bringing them down. You're getting them to think. You're involving them in a conversation. You're closing them. When he gets off of that conversation, he's saying, "Whew, what a guy." You can't start all over again. You can't even do 2 of those in a row in the same conversation. Do them one at a time. Also, presenting candidates one at a time will give you multiple opportunities to talk to the employer. It'll tell the employer that you're working on the job full-time, and he likes that. And it will help you develop a rapport. You have presented the candidate to the employer. Employer likes what he hears. It is now time to set up the first interview. Well, John said get him in tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. We're now going to call up Charlie and prep him for the first interview. This is where most recruiters start to lose control of the process. You see, that first interview is going to be out from under your control. And most people who go into interview just want to get through it. They want to get out in one piece. And recruiters don't help them to do any better. I want our candidate to go in and what?
Win.
That's right. And the way to prepare him to win is to be able to give him as much information as possible ahead of time. We don't want him in there freezing up. We don't want him in there worrying about how he's doing. We want him walking in there with confidence, knowing he's going to do well. Remember, interviewing is sweaty palm time for most adults. Adults interview 15 or 20 times in their whole lives. But we're going to help him to go in and win. The first thing we're going to tell Charlie when we have him on the phone to prep him is, Charlie, let's clear away all the smoke. When you go in there tomorrow, you have 2 objectives and 2 objectives only. Number 1, find out if the job and the company are a good fit for you. Are the job and the company a good fit? And objective number 2, set up the next interview. If the next step were a test, we'd say schedule a test. If the next step were an offer, we would say get the offer. Whatever the next step is, the next action step, schedule it. Now, we are going to describe in detail the company, the position, and the interviewing process to Charlie. Company. You ever notice the difference between the way a recruiter describes a company before he's been out there and after he's been out there? Before he's been out there, he says this is a company with 4 locations, 7,000 employees, they make $9 million a year, and they make egg cartons. And then after he's been out there, he starts talking about these people and what they're like, and the machinery, and how they make their product, and the plans for the future. It's a whole different presentation. Well, that's the kind of presentation that I want you to make to Charlie. An enthusiastic, an emotional presentation, not egg cartons, number of facilities, annual sales. That he can read in a manufacturer's directory. We're going to describe the interviewing process. Charlie, when you get out there tomorrow, you're going to pull up to a 2-story brick building. It's about 3 acres in size. You're going to walk into a wood-paneled waiting room with drawings of horses on the wall. First person you're going to talk to is Edna. She's the receptionist. Nice lady. She's been there for about 20 years. Describe Edna to Charlie. Edna's going to give you some paperwork. Here's what the paperwork is. You're going to have to fill it out. First guy you're going to meet with is Dave. Dave is the group manager. Dave is going to talk to you about your career to date. Dave is a real high-energy guy. His tie is always open. Now, when you interview with Dave, he likes you to do most of the talking. Here are the kinds of questions he asks. Here are the kinds of answers that he likes to hear. Next, you're going to meet with Andrew. Now, Andrew has been with the company for 14 years. He's the district manager. He's going to talk to you about the job that you would be doing at this company. Andrew likes to do most of the talking in his interviews. Here are the kinds of questions he asks. Here are the kinds of answers that he likes to hear. Now, finally, you're going to meet with Walter. Walter's one of the founders. He's about 60 years old. He's a lovely guy, but a very conservative guy. He conducts an unstructured interview. He's going to try and draw you out. Frankly, he's looking for someone who would like to build a career at this company. Here are the kinds of questions he asks. Here are the kinds of answers he likes to hear. Now, how do we know all of that? Huh? It's on the job order. It is all on the job order. Everything I just said is an answer to a question that we asked before. What is the interviewing process? How many? With whom? Over what period of time? How long does each one last? What's the agenda for each interview? Tell me about the interviewers. What kinds of guys are they? How long have they been at the company? When they interview, what kinds of questions do they ask? What kinds of answers do they like to hear? Now, you know how many many recruiters prep candidates for interviews? Well, you know how they do it? They say, Charlie, your interview is at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I know you're going to knock them dead. Give me a buzz as soon as you leave. Now, who's going to win? Who's going to win? Our guy or this guy who's been told knock him dead? See, our guy can go to bed tonight thinking about who he's going to meet with, how he's going to make his points, thinking about all of that. So when he goes in there tomorrow, he's rehearsed it. This other guy, tomorrow's April Fool's Day. Everybody's going to see, everybody's going to meet with, everything they're going to talk about is going to be one surprise after another. You bet. Make sure that you prepare your candidate to go in and win. Now, Charlie, if the subject of money comes up in that interview, if they ask you how much is it going to take to get you over here, I want you to tell them, look guys, I'm here for the challenge and the opportunity. I'm sure you'll make me a fair offer. Charlie, do not name a number. I will negotiate the best possible offer for you. I'm not going to promise you what it might be because I don't know, but it will be the best possible offer. Recruiters, do not let Charlie name a number. If they get Charlie to name a number in that first interview, you become a bystander at that moment in the process. You lose your negotiating leverage. And I'll tell you what else happens. Charlie goes into that interview. You've hammered him down to 43. He goes into that interview and they say, Charlie, what's the minimum amount that you take, or what's it going to take to get you over here? Well, a candidate, in an effort to please, always names a number lower than he wants. Charlie may say, oh, I'll come for 43. And then Charlie will interview a couple more times, regain his confidence, say, I told him I wanted 43, but I really want 45. Handle it for me, will you? He'll say to you guys. And then, of course, the company's going to start negotiating down from the number that Charlie gave them, which is 43. And then we have a mess. Don't let Charlie name a number. Charlie, here's what you should wear tomorrow. Tell him exactly what to wear. Don't assume that a six-figure candidate knows how to dress like a six-figure candidate. I could tell you too many horror stories about big-shot executives who went on interviews wearing blue pinstripe suits and yellow argyle socks, and the company never finds it amusing. Doesn't reflect well on the candidate and doesn't reflect well on you either. Now, some men are uncomfortable telling other men or women what to wear. Women seem to be comfortable telling anybody what to wear. But if you're uncomfortable telling someone what to wear, at the very least, tell them how they dress out there and that they hire in their own image. Get that message across. Charlie, when you're out there, if you like what you're hearing, if you want that job, tell them, I want to come to work here. What do I do next? Some recruiters say, but I don't want my candidate to seem too eager. Baloney. Let your candidate declare himself. If that employer has two people sitting in front of them, and one of them is saying, I really want to come to work for you. I want to come to work here. And the other candidate is saying, show me, baby. This first candidate's going to get the job. He's going to get it all the time because they're going to feel better chemistry with him. Let him declare himself. And Charlie, call me immediately after you leave this interview. Now, last thing we're going to say to Charlie. Charlie, I am reviewing my notes. You said that you would accept $43,000 for the right opportunity. Is that right? No, I said I'd take 43 for a perfect opportunity. This is the second time we've talked to Charlie about specific numbers. You know what I hear recruiters doing all the time? Charlie, will you take mid-40s? Yeah, I'll take mid-40s. And they go to John over at the company. John, will you take mid-40s? Sure. Will you offer a mid-40s? Sure. We'll offer a mid-40s. So you have a candidate who's ready to take mid-40s and a company that's ready to offer a mid-40s. What does that company hear when they hear mid-40s? 42, 43. What does Charlie hear when he hears mid-40s? 47. So you get a $42,000 offer out for a candidate who swore you were talking 47. No, don't talk mid-40s, mid-40s. Talk specific dollars. Remember, we are closing this candidate. We've got him at 43 now. We've got that company, hopefully, at 46. That's where we want them. We want to keep a spread between the candidate and the company. All right, Charlie, good luck. Call me tomorrow immediately after you leave. Now, let's go back to John. Let's get John back on the phone. Hi, John. This is Tony Byrne. I want to confirm Charlie's interview tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. Now, John, let me tell you a little bit more about Charlie. Let me tell you what it's going to take to get him. We are now going to describe Charlie's needs to John, and every candidate has needs. Charlie may need for his vacations to coincide with his wife's vacations because he works. He may need to see a career path that leads from group to division over 5 years. He may need to qualify for their tuition reimbursement program because he goes to law school at night. Every candidate has needs. Tell that company now, before he goes in, what the candidate's needs are. Some recruiters say, but I don't want to make it look like my candidate is making demands. Your candidate is not making demands. See, that company is either going to like him or they're not. And if they like him, they're going to want to do what they have to do within reason to get the candidate. So load their gun. Give them some ammunition. Tell them what it's going to take so that if they start liking Charlie right out of the barrel, they can start doing what they need to do to get him on board. All right, get off the phone with the company. Tomorrow afternoon, 1 o'clock, interview takes place. 4:30, Charlie calls us. That sounds about right. He had 3 one-hour interviews. He's calling us at 4:30. How'd it go, Charlie? Great. I like the people that I met. I like the company. I want to go to work there. Good. All right, Charlie, how long were you there? Well, I was there for about 3 hours, a little more. Who'd you talk to, Charlie? Met with 3 guys, group, district, and division. Charlie, what did you think of each of those guys personally? I hope he liked them. Because if he didn't like them, he's not going to go to work for them. He may think they're the greatest accountants in the world, but if he didn't like them, he won't go to work for them. And I'll tell you this, if he did like them, I bet you they liked him too. That's the way chemistry works. If they hit it off, they probably hit it off. Charlie, could you work with these guys? Oh, yeah. How'd they describe the job to you, Charlie? Well, just like you described, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Or you may find that you fine-tune your job order a little bit on the first interview debrief. Charlie says, well, it's a little more of this, a little less of that. That's good. But let's assume right now that we are debriefing a one who was a perfect fit for the job. Charlie, can you do that job? You ever had a candidate say, no, but I can learn fast? Our companies don't want to pay us $10,000 for somebody who can learn fast. And our first closing question, Charlie, do you want the job? Now here's where recruiters start compromising and making mistakes. What is the range of acceptable answers to that question? Charlie, do you want the job? Yes. That is the only acceptable answer to the question. That's the only one we're going to work with. It's perfectly legitimate for the candidate to say yes, as long as my vacation coincides with my wife's vacation. Yes, as long as I can qualify for the tuition reimbursement program. Yes, as long as I can see a career path that leads from group to division over 5 years. Those are all contingent yeses. That's all right. We can solve that. But when the candidate starts coming out of there saying, I don't know, I don't think so, don't sell, don't arm twist. Educate. See, selling here should be educating. If by educating the candidate we can cause him to be interested, if he's interested, as long as we can solve a problem and we can solve the problem, go ahead and do it. But don't start arm twisting here, because all you're going to do is force somebody to say, yeah, I'll go on another interview, who really doesn't want to go on that interview when you should be finding somebody who'd really want that job. Now, Charlie, how'd they leave it with you? Well, I said, I really want to come to work here, guys. What do I do? And they said, Charlie, come on back in next Tuesday. We want you to meet 2 group VPs. Where have we heard that before? Huh? On the job order. On the job order. They said that they were going to bring the finalists back to meet 2 group VPs. Remember? Good news. See, and if we hadn't pressed when we were taking that job order, we wouldn't know that right now. Okay, Charlie, did the subject of money come up? Yeah, they asked me how much it was going to take to get me over here. And I said, frankly, guys, I want to see how much you think I'm worth. Wouldn't that be great if candidates were that glib? Actually, if you could just get your candidate to refrain from saying a number, you're lucky. Once again, Charlie, is there anything that could hold this up? Time is everything. Anything personal? Anything medical? Are you interviewing anywhere else? Now, recruiters, some people will tell you that you can't believe anything that a company says to you, anything that a candidate says to you. Well, not me. I'm going to tell you that you have to believe everything that an employer says to you and everything that a candidate says to you. Otherwise, you can't function. With one small exception, and it's right here. A candidate who is interviewing somewhere else will often say he's not when you ask him the first time before the first interview, because he doesn't want the fact that he is to prevent you from sending him out on this interview. So we ask him again. He'll tell you now, because now it's an issue. So don't punish him for telling you the truth. Just find out as much as you can about the other opportunity. Given equal offers from both of those companies, which one would he take? You know, we may have to make a judgment call. If he's favoring the other opportunity, I'd probably want to yank him from this until he goes the distance with the other one. If he's feeling equally about the 2 of them, let them both go forward. All right, Charlie. I am reviewing my notes. You said that you would accept $43,000 for the right opportunity. Is this the right opportunity? Well, Charlie may say, yes, this is the right opportunity. Charlie may say, well, as a matter of fact, I'm going to need 48. But let's assume maximum, optimal, positive, number 1 behavior. Charlie, who we've closed before tentatively at 43, comes out of that interview and says, I like that position so much that I will take it for 42. Has that ever happened to you before? Candidate lowers his number by 1,000? Sure. What's he telling us? Look at that interest demand barometer. What's he telling us? Demand goes down, interest goes up. Demand goes down, interest goes up. The interest demand barometer. If he came out of there saying, I want 48, demand goes way up, interest goes way down. Watch the interest demand barometer. We've just debriefed a 1. Let us tune it down 1 notch. We're debriefing Charlie, and he's not saying no, but he's not saying yes either. We want to test Charlie. We want to find out whether or not he is, in fact, a 1. And the way to test a candidate is this. Charlie, I have 2 other people who want to interview at that company. Should I send them? What's a number 1 going to tell us? No way. And if Charlie then says, yeah, go ahead and send them out there, is Charlie interested in this position? No. Absolutely not. Let's tune it down 1 more notch. We're debriefing Charlie, and we say, Charlie, do you want the job? And Charlie says, I'm not sure, I don't know. Charlie, I am going to send 2 other people out to that firm. Go home and think about it. If you want to pursue it, you call me. In other words, the less interested Charlie seems, the harder I'm going to rip that job away from him, and the harder I'm going to make him work to get it back. Shouldn't arm twist, which is what recruiters start doing right here, which is why they spend weeks working on things that are never, ever, ever going to go together. If he doesn't want it, he doesn't want it. Find somebody else who does. Now let's debrief the company. John, I just got off the phone with Charlie. He is happy. He likes the guys he met, likes your company, wants to come to work for you. What did you think of him? It's an open question, designed to elicit a spontaneous answer. Now let me tell you about company behavior. John may not know that he's going to hire Charlie yet, but if he is going to hire him, this much is true. He now likes him. You'll never get to this point here, ask what'd you think of him, and have him say, oh, well, we're not sure, and then have him hiring him later. You want to look for a positive response here. Yeah, we like him. Yup, could be our guy. That kind of thing. Just a positive response. How long did you talk to him? Well, we talked to him for 3+ hours. Who talked to him? Well, 3 guys. Group, myself, and division. What did you think of him personally? You guys. We liked him. See, I hope they like him. Same principle applies. They may think he's the greatest accountant in the world, but if they didn't like him, they're not going to hire him. Is he the man for the job or she the woman for the job? If yes, why yes? Have him start rehearsing his reasons why he likes the candidate. And if no, why not? So that we can fine-tune our recruiting efforts. Now, I want to get the word offer into this conversation right now, the word offer. If it were going to be a first interview offer, we would say, are you going to make him an offer? But we are now going to ask, are you considering making him an offer? Could be. Yeah, could be. Well, and watch how we box him into a corner here. See, this is the beauty of having specific information. Most recruiters, if they got that answer, could be, to the question, are you considering making him an offer, would say, oh, good, 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 would go on to the next question. But you don't know anything yet. Are you considering making him an offer? Could be. Well, John, I understand you're bringing him back in next Tuesday to meet 2 group VPs. Yeah, that's right. You said you were going to meet the finalists, bring the finalists back to meet 2 group VPs. Is he the finalist? Yes, he is. You said you'd send the finalists home with an offer if the 2 group VPs liked him. Will you send Charlie home with an offer if the 2 group VPs like him? Yes, we will. Now, that's specific information. That we can work with. See, that's a real timetable. That's a plan. And we can work around that. We have just debriefed about as much of a one. And, of course, on the first interview debrief, you want to remind the company, I think we can get him for 45. I am sure we can get him for 46. Think we can get him for 45. I'm sure we can get him for 46. I'm making a mistake. It's going to come back to haunt me. We want 46. Okay. Let's tune the company down one notch. Have you ever debriefed an employer and he's just not quite as enthusiastic as he was before? Just not quite? Well, let's test him. John, 2 of your competitors want to see Charlie. Should I send him out there? Now, if they want to hire Charlie, what are they going to say? No way. Put him on ice. Sit on him until we're through interviewing him. And if they now say, sure, send him on out there, do we have a placement happening here? Absolutely not. So test, test, test. Keep testing that candidate to make sure he's a number 1. Keep testing that employer to make sure that they have number 1 feelings towards the candidate. All right. We've taken a job order. We have recruited somebody. We have presented the candidate to the employer. We have prepped the candidate for the first interview. First interview's taken place. We have debriefed the candidate. There is continuing interest between the candidate and the company. It is time to check references.